Welcome to MetalVice in 666. I'm your host, Brian, joined with your other host,
Karen.
And for this episode, it's actually kind of like a pre-episode for next week's episode, or the next episode we're going to do, where we were talking a lot amongst ourselves about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and who's in it, who's not in it. And I thought it'd be a fun game to play of just like listing off artists or bands and whatnot that, and ask you, like, are they in, are they not? And get your take to see if you thought they were in the Rock and Roll or not. But before we did that, I was doing a little bit more research on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I figured this episode is just more about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame itself, a little bit about the categories and the history of it, very, very high level. And then next time, the next episode we do will be on that sort of, is this act in or out type thing.
Okay.
As the recording of this. And this is November 17th, 2024 when we're recording this. So yeah, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we all sort of kind of know what it is, right? It's the Hall of Fame for rock music, according to Wikipedia.
Rock music.
Yes. It's a museum that documents the history of rock music and the artists, producers, engineers, and notable figures and personnel who helped influence its development. Its development being rock and roll.
Okay.
So with that sort of broad definition, I guess, I could see why non-rock artists and acts could potentially be in.
Could be.
Because you can have not like pop music or whatnot that helps influence rock and roll music.
Yeah.
Same with hip hop and rap and whatnot.
Maybe
right?
they should just change it to the Music Hall of Fame.
Maybe, right?
Instead of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Because when you think rock and roll, you sort of have a connotation of what you're thinking for rock and roll.
Yeah.
Which will lead into, again, next week's episode of saying, hey, is this artist in or out type thing. But the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was established April 20th, 1983.
That surprises me. I figured it would be around a lot longer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Why is that?
I don't know.
Just
figured
because.
Yeah, I just figured it would be.
80s seems maybe about right to me. I was probably going to say 70s, late 60s.
I guess for rock and roll, yeah. Like it kind of became more popular around
the 60s.
I was going to say 70s, 80s.
I'd say with the Beatles.
Oh, yeah, that's
and
true.
Elvis Presley. Like,
that's true, yeah.
So you're getting into like the late 50s, early 60s.
Early 60s, yeah.
Where you take sort of those jazz and blues influences and sort of
turn it into rock and roll.
Turn it into rock and roll,
yeah,
right?
That's true.
But yeah, I don't know. The 80s seems somewhat right to me, but also I can see where you're coming from with it. It seems like it could be older as well.
Yeah. I probably didn't even hear about it until like 20 years ago.
It was founded by, I'm going to get this name wrong, Amit Ertegun? Amit, all right.
Probably Amit.
Ertegun.
Ertegun?
It's Turkish. He's a Turkish businessman. He was the founder and chairman of Atlantic Records.
Oh, okay.
So he founded this, and I believe he brought in a bunch of other people, and he founded it from journalists and other people within the music industry themselves to sort of help define who's going to be in and who's going to get nominated.
Oh, okay. Like do the voting and everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's sort of, again, a super, super high level of what the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is. And yeah, there's a lot more information here around the building. It's in Cleveland.
That's cool. We should go to Cleveland then. And is it an actual like museum?
There is an actual museum there.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it was
we should
built.
do that sometime.
This says, I think, 95.
Okay.
Was when it was inducted, or it was dedicated in September of 95. Was the building? It's in downtown Cleveland. They do have their archives, which is actually at a community college in Cleveland as well, which is super fucking awesome.
That's awesome to like bring in the community college then.
They also have an annex in New York City. So yeah, just, different buildings all over the place and different archives and whatnot and whatnot. But the main museum is in Cleveland. So if we ever make it to Cleveland, maybe we can check that out.
Yeah,
for sure.
we should do that. Yeah, or do like just a trip that doesn't. It's still music related, but not a concert related.
Yeah, exactly. So the categories that they have that you can be inducted into are the performers category. Pretty straightforward what that is. It's for recording artists and bands who have influence and significance in the development and perpetuation of rock and roll. That's the performance category. Early musical influence. This is for musicians who predated rock and roll but had a significant impact in the evolution of rock and roll itself and inspired rock, legends and rock industry itself.
Maybe with that category is why I thought it was around longer.
Gotcha.
Because some of the people who were indicted for
inducted.
Inducted.
Yeah. Unlike the performance category, though, these people who are inducted into this category are selected by a committee. And in 2023, it was renamed from early influence to musical influence. So again, broadening it out outside of early influence into rock and roll into musical influence.
That broadens it even more. That it's just like musical influence into
exactly,
rock and roll, not necessarily like early influence in rock and roll, like the jazz, the blues, all those categories. They should just change the whole name.
This one's fun. The non-performers category, later named the Amit Erdogan Award. The guy who founded the foundation, he died, and it was renamed after him. As the name says, this is for non-performing. This non-performing category honors songwriters, producers, disc jockeys, record executives, journalists, and other individuals who helped promote rock and roll and helped build rock and roll and establish rock and roll.
That's kind of cool. Yeah, that's a good category.
I think so too. Yeah,
because it's not only the performers; there's
so much that goes into it. Your producers, the people who behind the scenes who are doing things. So there's a whole lot that goes into it. And disc jockeys too, right? Think about people on the radio that you hear all the time talking about music and whatnot.
Yeah, it's playing the music too.
Yep. Next is the Award for Musical Excellence, established in 2000 as the Sideman Award. This one's interesting. Honors those musicians, producers, and others who have spent their careers out of the spotlight, working with major artists on various parts of their recording and live careers.
Wait, so would that include like roadies?
Possibly, I guess. I mean, it's pretty broad in what it means, right?
Or like techs and stuff?
Yeah. Again, this is sort of the non-performer category, I think. It's really weird because it really goes back and forth.
But I mean, I think techs and roadies have like such a huge part in music because, I mean, if you're not, I mean, I don't know if that's what this is, but I mean, I think that they should be spotlighted as well, especially if you've been with a band or been with an artist for a long time. And like, across like multiple tours or something. Yeah, I think that's
your managers and whatnot, your techs and all that. Like your guitar techs, you hear this all the time. I think I read it in Randy's book where he's like, hey, our guitar techs, I've met a lot of guitar techs and they are better musicians than we are, but we got famous. Like, we got the luck of the draw sort of thing.
Yeah. And there's a lot of bands that bring their guitar techs onto the stage. Like I'm thinking Disturbed, for example, like,
for the special songs.
So they'll have like the tech come on and
also play.
And in recordings and stuff like that. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a huge thing.
And I think Metallica, when James got burnt in like the early 90s and like couldn't play his guitar for a while, his tech came out and played and he just did the vocals for a shit on time.
I didn't know about that.
Because he was injured and couldn't play. So yeah, agreed 100%. And according to Joel Persman, the president of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, at least at the time this quote was, which I think was 2010, he stated that this award gives flexibility to dive into some things and recognize some people who might not originally get recognized.
Yeah, no, I think that's great.
I think that's great too. When we go to next week's game, I'll have a little comment on this whole category.
Okay.
We'll see. I think the intent is really good. I don't think
it's going the way it was. Okay, so it's maybe not how I've been thinking about it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
The last category we have started in 2018, so it's the newest category, and it's singles. I love the idea of this, that there are bands, your one-hit wonders type things, right?
Yeah.
And there's songs that have such a huge impact, not only on rock and roll, but on society and culture as a whole. So recognizing those individual songs, even though the artist might not be necessarily the greatest rock and roll band out there or act out there, that song for a moment in time, be it, a few weeks, be it a few months, sometimes even a few years, that song can last and be so impactful to so many people. So I love the idea of this category. However, Steve Van Zandt made a comment on this, about this category here. Where is it? A recognition of the excellence of the singles that shaped rock and roll. Kind of a rock and roll jukebox. Records by artists not in the Rock and Roll Hall. Which is not to say these artists will never be in the Rock and Roll Hall. They just are not in the Rock and Roll Hall at this time. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't agree with that sentiment of if a band's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they can't have a single listed in this category as well.
But did they say that these bands aren't in the Rock and Roll?
That's what the comment originally said. So I don't know if that's the original intent, but there's like Twist and Shout by the Isley Brothers was inducted into this category in 2019, but they were inducted in the performance category in 1992. So it kind of went against itself in terms of what that statement.
Because I think you could have both. I mean, you could have a career that gets you inducted, but then also one song that had significance over the culture or over rock and roll as a whole.
Yeah, and to me, that thought is Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody. Mm-hmm. Queen's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but I think Bohemian Rhapsody, the song itself, is so impactful and means so much to so many people. And it's like an 8-minute long single, right? That this was back when your main airtime was radio. So you had to get on the radio, and people aren't going to fucking play 8 minutes.
Yeah, they're going to play like 3 minutes.
Exactly. So like having like the band saying, no, this is our single, this is the leading track of the album.
Does it have to be released as a single?
I don't,
or is it just
see, I don't know. I don't know that.
Oh, that's a good.
But individual songs, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I understand what you're saying. I'm just wondering if you need to release it. Because, I mean, yeah. Anyways, we don't have to go into that. But.
Yeah. All in all, though, I think the category is great. I love this category. It's been sort of dormant, I think, the last few years. I don't think there's been too many things released into it or inducted into it. So we had 2018, 19, and then 2020 was the last sort of inductees into this category. With songs like Tequila and whatnot, Born to be Wild and so on. So, I mean, again, I really, really like this category. I think it's a great category. I would love to see more shit get put into this category. And I think all of these categories outside of the performance one are sort of selected by a committee versus that first one. I'm not 100% sure how those get nominated and put in.
Take a shot every time Brian says category.
Yep. The requirements to get in for the performance category anyway, you have to, it's 25 years after your first album is released. And we're coming up on that mark right now for a lot of new metal bands who definitely shaped rock and roll and metal in the early 2000s. So are they going to get nominated and put in? I'm going to go with no.
Probably not. Should they? Yes.
I think so too, yes.
But
I mean, look, Ozzy just got put in this year?
This year, yeah.
As a single artist, so like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot of love for metal, which is a subgenre of rock and roll. There's a lot more love for other genres that I don't even think are subgenres of
like pop
rock. I think so, yeah. But that kind of sort of gets into the criticism of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We've known of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and you see some of these artists like Dolly Parton, you're like, what the fuck is she doing getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? And even she was like, what am I doing here? She eventually came around. I think Rob Halford, Judas Priest was like, no, you definitely need to be in here. And again, changing it from the name of rock and roll to music.
To Music Hall of Fame or Performers Hall of Fame or something like that.
Yeah. I think,
well, not performers because like you have like the other categories, but definitely music would make more sense.
Yeah, because I mean, she's definitely had a huge impact on music itself. And maybe to some extent, yes, in rock and roll, she's had a little bit of an impact. But I would argue there are more notable musicians out there that have had a larger impact on rock and roll itself. So if you're going to make this the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, maybe that's what it should be. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, some criticism here. Let me find this quote here. Again, this is all on Wikipedia. At one point, Susan Evans lamented the choices being made because there weren't enough big names that would sell tickets to the dinner. That was quickly remedied by dropping one of the doo-wop groups being considered in favor for a name artist. I saw certain pioneer artists from the 50s and early 60s were shunned because there needed to be more name power on the list, resulting in the 70s superstars getting in before the people who made it possible for them. Some of these pioneers still aren't in today. So, again, it's
money.
The music industry, you got to sell those tickets.
Yep, money.
The big name at the time gets in, and not necessarily the people who truly deserve to be in. So,
I think that's. I mean, if we're gonna, I mean, we talk about metal all the time. So I think if you go back to talking about metal, I mean, you could use this as the Super Bowl. You could use this as any, spotlight thing that is nationwide or worldwide even, you know, you're not going to get those metal acts because they're not going to sell the tickets.
Especially in the States. I think metal, especially in like Europe and around the world, is a lot more popular than it is in the States.
Possibly.
But in the 80s, metal was sort of the king of music, or one of the kings, right? Like you look at the hair metal bands and how well they did and how much they sold. So again, like it depends on your era, and it's all cyclical. Like metal's going to come back around and be very popular, and then it's like it was in the 90s, late 90s, right, with nu metal, right? So it's going to be interesting to see now that that nu metal era is starting to come to this area where they can be in. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be a long, long time before you see Limp Bizkit, Korn, Linkin Park, Slipknot, you know, those bands get into the hall. I think it's going to be a long fucking time before we see them. But in any case, this was just sort of a quick little overview, me stumbling on my words quite a bit, of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Next time we do an episode, we're going to give you some artists and ask you if you think they're in or not, and kind of just see where that discussion goes.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
But anyway, thanks for joining us. And we've said it before, we hate fucking these lists and these committees coming up and saying, these are the best. These are, you know, the Hall of Famers and whatnot. You know, that's all fucking noise and junk and bullshit. Just listen to the music you like. And if you like a band, find out what bands influence them. And like, just go down that rabbit hole. There's so much fucking amazing music out there. And don't let anybody tell you what's good and not good. Just find what you like and enjoy what you like.
Yep. Bye.